My name is Chandrabhanu. I'm a dancer, anthropologist, a cultural activist, and very much involved with research into the arts as well as in social sciences. I have been a professional performer in Bharatanatyam, Odissi, and also in contemporary dance for 52 years. And I have been a teacher of Indian classical dance in Odissi and Bharatanatyam since 1973. Born in Perlis in Malaysia, it was most unlikely that I would become an Indian classical dancer. But in my life's journey, I have touched upon many different artistic endeavors. And when I went to live in Australia, originally to study in 1971, the whole idea of performing and the whole idea of teaching dance became almost like a crusade for me. That is to bring the arts of Asia, of Malaysia, to the world. And in that way, that has been my life's work. I was very inspired by Bharatanatyam, but originally my inspiration came from music, from Carnatic music. As a child, I was always thrilled to hear or to listen to Indian Carnatic classical music. I remember at the age of 9 hearing for the first time M.S. Subbulakshmi rendering that wonderful Vrindavana Saranga, Rangapura Vihara. And that music was to set the course for me for many years. And I also wanted to be a pop singer. And in my youth, I used to sing with a band and used to do a few nightclubs and functions. Dance came about for the love of music, because I felt that in Carnatic music, if you bring dance into it, you get an embodiment of the music, the ragam, the talam, the sahityam, all these, all of us suddenly became relevant to me at a very early age. And while, for instance, learning the basics and the rudiments of Bharatanatyam, Adavus, and then going on to repertoire work, it was a voyage of discovery. You have to remember that I don't come from the background that most Carnatic and Bharatanatyam dancers come from. My parents are of mixed races. My father was Bengali Burmese, and my mother was Arabic, Thai, Chinese. But my great-grandmother on my father's side was a Nauch girl, a dancer. And I think that's where the link was. My father encouraged involvement in the arts, in music, in dance, of all sorts. And this was the environment that I came from. So it wasn't much to actually take that step into Bharatanatyam and at an early age. And having learned the rudiments and having satisfied the basic training, I then decided that I wanted to go further in search of, more than anything else, the knowledge and the beauty of Bharatanatyam in terms of how it portrays life in itself. That's when I went to study under my guru, Adayar K. Lakshman, a most innovative guru, we could say, with a wonderful teaching technique. And in so many years of training with him, doing his compositions in dance, I discovered, an entire universe, and that the universe is infinite. And in a sense, I carry on part of his work in terms of my teaching, my compositions, my choreographies. So the innovative part, you find sometimes in the old days, people used to say, you must adhere strictly to the tenets of classicism. Yes, we do that. But you have to remember that classicism came from somewhere, that at one time it was innovative. And therefore, realizing that today we have so many people from the younger generation, all experimenting, all being innovative, I would say that this is art in itself. But whether you are successful or not in using innovation within tradition depends on the knowledgeable ability of people who can be critical, who can give you a critical analysis. There are certain limits, I would say, and the gist, the life of the dance form remains the same. But I always use the example of Muthuswami Dikshitar, the great composer, in the sense that he was so innovative. And if you listen to his music, you will find that none of the other composers worked like him. And this has been, that song Rangapura Vihara, for instance, it haunted me all my life. And even today, when I work on Dikshitar pieces to convert the music to dance, the inherent depth, spiritual depth of his works is just so unmistakable. For me, dance is the dance of life and the dance of the mind more than anything else, both things. Many people talk about rasa in dance, but they forget about the bhavam part. In Sanskrit theory, rasa is the emotions, whereas bhava is the mind. Is mind and emotion. So there is an intellectual area in the arts, which I feel many people miss out. And the dance of life for me is not just whether you are physically getting up on the stage and performing. The dance of life is life itself. I see that as, for instance, I see the process of living, life, love, loss, tragedies, disappointments, regrets, joy, sexuality. I see all that as part of the dance of life. And in my work, in choreographing pieces in Bharatanatyam or Odissi, I'm always aware of the influences of those aspects of life. While we may teach certain things, while my gurus taught me, many things to do with emotions and intellect, there are certain things which are your personal experiences. And to be able to harness those personal experiences to be able to connect with the audience. So I always feel that when I'm on stage doing any one of the pieces that I've choreographed myself, the thing of reaching out to the audience to make them understand. So my technique is that I always feel that I can make the audience feel as if it's they who are dancing, not me. And you've succeeded if you can do that. You know, they feel they can empathize, they can connect with you in terms of what emotions you're portraying. So in that sense, your personal experience and your personal intelligence is crucial. We can be correct dancers. We can do exactly how our gurus taught us. We do the perfect steps, and we can have perfect talam, perfect shruti. But if we don't experiment with how to actually bring your personal experiences into the dance, because dance, after all, is a language. It is a language for us to communicate our spiritual feelings. And what is spiritual? It is not, I always have to divide the whole concept of religiosity and spirituality. Spirituality has to do with your spirit. And spirituality also has to do with your awareness of your place in this cosmos, in this universe, your place in this society, your place in this world. Where do you belong? In a sense, we are just one little minute organism. But in another sense, we're part of the infinite universe and the cosmos. So being able to understand that is so crucial to the concept of spirituality. The physical part of dance, when you're young, you know, you're energetic and you want to prove that you are technically superb. And now at this age, at the age of 75, I can tell everyone, look, you know, I was trying to be the perfect dancer, the star, you know, trying to do all sorts of physical acrobatic movements and trying to be the best. But at 75, I can say, well, now I've got arthritis in my knees and I've got arthritis in my hips. I can no longer do the things that I used to do, even when I was 40, let alone, you know, when I was 20. But that physical aspect is the energy, and young people have a lot of it. As a young person, we trained and we wanted to be as brilliant and as perfect as possible technically. This is the physical part of it. And then there's the mind and the spirit. You know, as you grow older, you find that the mind and the spirit and your feelings take over. That's because you live through life and you experience many things in life. So as I remember when I approached 40, I was still agile, I was still energetic, I was still able to do, you know, all the things that I could do when I was 20. But the mind felt that that wasn't so important anymore. I started looking for other things. I started looking for experiences that would push me further into understanding that spirituality. The most difficult part for me in training or in my career was not so much the physical aspect. It was the fact that I lived overseas and I was always having to return to India every year to train with my gurus, and then starting my own company in Melbourne and being in a foreign country. My battle was really to do with how to get Bharatanatyam, Odissi accepted in Australia as part of Australia's burgeoning multicultural journey. And they were the hard years. The fact that in the end, my company and myself, we were able to actually attract government grants to run a full-time dance company for 15 years. That was a big success for me. And so that was where my struggles were. Because in the West, unlike Britain, Australia was a stranger to Indian classical arts. Today it's a different matter. Today we have, I think in Melbourne, we have 100 Bharatanatyam schools. And the diaspora has happened very slowly in Australia. But I was the first one to establish a dance school with full classical training. And I was the first one to actually present my students in Arangetrams. I was the first one to run a full-time dance company with salaried dancers in Australia. So those struggles really were to do with how to fight against the prejudices of the system that saw Indian classical dance or Asian classical dance as foreign. Whereas my argument at that time is that, no, it is not foreign. We are living here and we continue to develop our arts. And that was my major intention in the beginning, how to bring this beautiful art form to the world. So in that way, I developed communicative skills. You know, everyone knows that when I get up to speak about my dances, it makes sense. You know, most people will say, oh, we never heard such a commentary on this dance before. So in the sense that I had to make sure that my audiences, who were not necessarily all Indian, in the early years, there was 75% non-Indian, could understand what I was doing. And so in a sense, I was a translated being, and I still am. And today I'm very proud that I can translate my experiences, my personal experiences, as well as my cultural experiences to the public. Choosing dance, you know, is in itself, most people will say, why would you want to be a dancer? You know, you don't make any money from it. You will always be, well, in that case, in that sort of matter, anybody who wants to be an artist, whether a visual artist or a music artist or a dance artist, for all that matter, will always be poor. I mean, very rarely do we have, you know, artists who can sell their paintings for 100,000 ringgits or 500,000 ringgits. Those are very rare people, but they have been promoted to that position. Now, when it comes to dance and when it comes to Indian classical dance, whether it's Bharatanatyam or Odissi or Kuchipudi and so forth, it's a passion. You know, you want to do it because you feel that your being gets expressed by doing that. So when you go, when you train and then you go on stage, now, firstly, in 1976, when I gave my first solo performance of Bharatanatyam, a male dancer. So my inspiration was, you know, originally was the dancer Ram Gopal, a male dancer. And then I was inspired by other artists like Bala Saraswati and Yamini Krishnamurti. And then in music, you know, I was very affected by M.S. Subbulakshmi as well as KVN, K.V. Narayanasamy. So I had this as my world, but I wasn't bargaining for people to say, what's a male dancer doing Bharatanatyam? It's a female dance form. So that was the first hurdle. And the success of my first solo performance in Kuala Lumpur in 1976 proved the fact that there was an audience for me. And in a sense, people used to say that I was the first full-length Margam performance of Bharatanatyam in 1976. And it just happens that I was a male. My teachers were fully supportive. And in my performance, for instance, I would do a Varanam, which has to do with the theme of the Naika theme. So how do a male dancer like me approach that? This the spirituality. So if we go back to the tenets of spirituality in Hinduism or in any religious belief or in any concept, the soul is neither male or female. It's only a category that we use here. So I worked on that. I worked on the great poets of India, from Kabir to Jayadeva to South Indian poets to the Virasaiva poetry, where your gender is not really what you are about. It is the soul is actually without the definitions of our day-to-day life. And in working on the bhakti element of Indian poetry, and I was very affected by the Virasaiva saints. And one of the best poems, of course, is that if they see a beard, they call it a man. If they see breasts and long hair, they call it a woman. But behold, O Lord, the soul is neither man or woman. So I used that concept. So on stage, I was able to portray the Naika. I was able to portray the Nayaka. I was able to portray the Saki. And in which case, you take on these roles by understanding the psyche. So in the early years, people used to say that I was very androgynous on stage, that I was able to be fluid gender-wise in portrayals in Bharatanatyam. So I would say that this was a major challenge for me. And once established, it was always, I found, not the whole gender issue that people were looking at. It was the depth of the sahityam, the music that I could portray. And I continued to do that throughout my whole career. And the ability, the criticism that I had sometimes, when I did the Grand Varanam in Bhairavi, Mohamana, terribly sensuous, beautiful lyrics, an incredible sort of raga delineation throughout the whole dance. The Naika is an experienced Naika, and it is a piece soaked in Sringara. So when I did that, in my performances, the criticism would come back to me. Sometimes people say, what's a man doing something like Mohamana? But I said, listen to the lyrics. It is to do with spirituality. It's not to do with Sringara alone. And the Sringara is there. But you have to understand the longing, the viraham, of the composer. The composer is a man writing in the guise of a woman. It's Ponaya Pillai, one of the Tanjore Quartet brothers. So an ability to understand that is important. I was fortunate in the sense that my physicality lent itself very well to the androgeneity of my portrayals. Uh, Today, of course, many dancers, there are questions about sexuality. There are questions about, people who are effeminate or people who are not effeminate, and they shouldn't be doing this naika dances. There are questions about what's suitable for male dancers. I think it's a very personal thing. And I think for my advice for the younger male dancers today is that know yourself. And if you're going to portray a Naika Bhav piece, you really have to understand the psyche of both the woman and the man. And that's where, where I would place the emphasis is that the psyche is most crucial. So if you haven't got the psyche, you will not be able to understand that. Which brings me to another subject matter which I'm well known for, is that people have said that Chandrabhanu is a feminist. And I wouldn't say that I'm just a feminist, but I understand the sexism and also the racism that sometimes exists in the art forms. And being a person who's been trained in social sciences, in social anthropology, and being an intellectual, I will weed out those elements. I can recognize them straight away. So that brings to the concept of research. Don't accept everything as they come. Question them, research them. And if it goes against the ideas of, if it is sexist or racist, that's where you need to weed them out. You need to be rational. So in my life with dance, I have worked in so many pieces with concepts of Shakti. The goddess, I've just finished working on presenting the Dashamahavidya for my students. Dashamahavidya was something that I came across very early in my training and very early in my career, but now it's passing on. Most of my students are women. So I have to understand the fact that, as women, they have other lives apart from dance. And they have to understand, they have to be able to incorporate that. And I think my students understand this, that whatever I teach them for life. I think my students, I have done 140 arangetrams. Out of those, only 4 or 5 have been males. The rest have been female students. Today, I have dancers who are still performing at the age of 55. I'm very proud of that. They started with me when they were 5 years old, and at 55, they're still performing, or they're teaching, or they're helping me run my academy. They understand the legacy. And I think the most important thing is the fact that I gave them that art form with the intellectualism to go with it. I gave them the understanding that you need to do research. You need to understand not just the lyrics and the stories behind the lyrics, but you need to go further and find out the source, why India's spirituality is so special. Added to which, most of the students I have taught are all professionals. They're doctors, lawyers, and this has to do with also the example that I set, the fact that I have a doctorate in social anthropology. My students are inspired by that, and they will follow. Some of them have become artists as well, dance artists as well, but they will always go back to the fact that I emphasize the intellectuality of the practice as well as the need for research. And I say that, I have taught well, and I have given as much of myself and as much as of emotions, as much of intellectualism to my students. It is now up to them, and I'm very happy that so many of them have taken on this value and gone on to become artists in their own right. And they're not doing things like how I do them, but I'm full of admiration for them because each work that they produce in contemporary dance particularly, or in classical dance, I can see, for instance, where my legacy has mattered, but I can also see where their individuality, their ability to seek further knowledge, further creativity with the art forms. So in that way, in my career, I had choreographed works which were unusual. For instance, taking on the Chilapadikaram, or doing the Navagraha Kritis. These are not normal, what we say, normal Bharatanatyam items. I worked on the Saptamatrikas, for instance, the 7 goddesses, on Dasha Mahavidya in Odissi. And I continue to work particularly with Dikshitar's compositions because he was a tantric practitioner. And I find so many things within his works which I understand because I also am a tantric practitioner. And particularly anything to do with Shakti or the goddess. Dikshitar knows it. He understands the depth of it all. So 2 years ago, I did a program for my dancers, 3 senior dancers, which looked at an entire program of Dikshitar compositions. So 9 dances, the music composed by Dikshitar. Somebody said to me, "Oh, but how are you going to do the Dikshitar kritis? There's no abhinaya there." I said, "No, you don't know how much there is unless you understand those lyrics and you understand Dikshitar's music." A piece like Akilandeshwari, for instance, may sound simple, but look at it. That ragam is complex, and the lyrics he puts in, if you're a tantric practitioner, you will understand the references to the goddesses and to Shakti. So in that way, the research is necessary. When I worked on the Chilapadikaram, I was very lucky. I had the help of so many artists, many from here, including Jayalakshmi Shekhar, Padma Subramaniam, who is no more now, who sang for the production, Shanmugaraghavan from Sri Lanka, and various other people, Radha Subramaniam, who is also passed away. All these people had inputs into my work, and I'm eternally grateful to them. When it was suggested that I do Chilapadikaram, I say, "Oh, no." I said, I'm very scared of that, and number one, because I'm not a natural born Tamil speaker. And I wouldn't say my Tamil is so crash hot, even today. But these people helped me, and I had a lot of help from Tamil scholars in Chennai as well as in Melbourne, who sat down with me and we worked day and night to actually make a script out of the original Tamil of Chilapatikaram. And then Karakudi Krishnamurti was very happy to write the music, to write the score for it. And with Padma Subramaniam, Shanmugaragavan, Jayalakshmi Shekhar, we worked day and night actually to make just the composition of the music so that I could have a structure to work with once I went back to Melbourne. So that, for me, is one of the highlights of my career. The same thing with the Navagraha Kritis. People used to say, those Navagraha Kritis are so difficult to sing. How are you going to dance to it? I said, I will learn how to sing it. And that's what I did. Learned all the 9 songs, which is spread out, in different ragas, but also in 7 different talams. But you go from strength to strength. If I hadn't done the Chilapatikaram, I wouldn't have dared to touch the Navagraha Kritis. And then other works came on later. My recent work, which I'm very proud of, is the Navadurga, the 9 Durgas in Odissi. And again, I am very lucky I have Krishna Chandra Rai singing for me, composing for me. My great fortune is that I worked with always very fine musicians, whether it's O.S. Arun or Ravi Kiran. These are Shanmugaragavan. These are musicians whom I work with. They're like my compatriots, and my musicians in Melbourne are equally the same. We are one community. We love each other, I would say, and we give as much as we can to bring the art form to its best for presentation. Well, I have a very funny story. I think we all need a bit of humor. Can't be too serious about, your dance career and your dance training and all that. When I was growing up in Perlis, my mother wanted me to be an accountant. And that was because my father died early. He was a financial officer, was state financial officer for the state of Perlis. So when he died early, my mother was grief-stricken. And she said, you must replace your father. You must go and do accountancy and find a position in government, in the same way. And I said to her, Mama, I have failed mathematics every single term. What do you think I'm going to do? And she would never hear of it. So in the end, she used to say, oh, you went to Australia to get a social science degree and you became a dancer. So life's opportunities are strange. I think throughout my life, I have chosen what I want to do. Now, the irony of it all is that today, with my young students, when I'm doing, the compositions for jatis and tirmanams, where it requires, you have to have your mathematics. And today, young students, they don't know their mathematics because they've all got calculators. So when I tell them to actually count, taka, dimmi, taka, takita, taka, dimmi, takita, I said, do your maths. And so I've got to the point where, because of the Tala system, uh, my mathematics is spot on. It's almost like a computer now. So I tell my students, I say, okay, you all need to do your maths. I said, if you want to do maths properly, I can teach you mathematics now. But this is the irony of life. Mathematics didn't mean anything to me when I was at school, but it did mean a lot to me once I got involved with compositions and analyzing jatis and tirmanams and so forth. So that's one aspect that I can look at with humor. And the other part of it, at every stage of my life, there has been changes. I was born in British Malaya. I saw independence, and I saw what society we were living in at that time. My father was a very influential intellectual figure for me. My mother worked in the nursing profession, and they were both from Penang, and they were proud of the Penang heritage, straight settlements, and before that, my grandparents all arrived in Malaysia because of the East India Company. So I'm very aware of that historical factor. So by the time I was 11, when my father passed away, life changed. We had a bit of a struggle, family-wise, to continue to have the dreams that we thought we were going to be doing. When I went to USA, I think as an exchange student, I took with me my dancing and performed there. And that was where I also developed my speaking skills, speech skills. And then it changed again because I went to Australia to study. But it was in Australia that I decided I wanted to chase the art form further. Australia is on that side and India is on that side. So it meant I had to go and do part-time work to earn enough money to go back to India every year. It was hard. It was hard not having any money of my own. And then it became part of my life, just going back and forth between Odisha, Chennai, and Australia, and then stopping on the way in Malaysia. The next part of my life is that I met a wonderful friend, an artist, who encouraged me to go further with the dance. So this friend, Mr. Jeffrey Goldie, he was an artist, and he decided that he would design all my sets and my performances. And I trusted him because he had the seeing eye of an artist. And although he was an Anglo-Saxon, he was very involved with meditations, with Buddhism, had lived in Japan. So there was great knowledge, artistic knowledge there. And through Jeffrey Goldie, presented me in performances in Australia. And then, of course, it became known in Malaysia as well that I was performing, in Bharatanatyam. So the next thing, the change came when I came back to Malaysia in '76, did a solo performance, and that attracted other organizations to keep calling me back to Malaysia. And it also attracted the Ministry of Arts and Culture for my Malaysian dance part. This is another area that, a lot of people don't know, that I'm probably a living heritage, what you call a national living heritage, in the Trinai dance from my state, Perlis. This is what I'm here to work with the university and with Aswara now. My old guru was in Trinai, has passed away, and I'm about the only one who understands how to preserve that art form. So at each stage of my life, things took different turns. And I wouldn't say I went to look for it. It just would come. And I say that it came because I was sincere and I had the talent and I could speak about it. But if you ask me whether, what did I want out of my career, I said, well, all I wanted to do was to dance. Because when I danced, I felt I was being myself. Other things just fell into place. And I had to take responsibility once I was accepted by the Australian arts community. I had to take responsibility of representing non-English speaking background artists to the Arts Council. And that was tough. It was a major challenge, But fortunately, I had the academic skills. I had the academic language to be able to do so. When I turned 50, I thought that would be it. I don't really want to dance anymore until I met O.S. Arun. O.S. Arun and I became very good friends. And then for my first solo performance with him, I realized that we had such incredible rapport on stage that, my improvisations with the Sancharis and so forth just took off, because he was able to actually understand where my psyche was going during the dances. And O.S. Arun became a close friend, and he sang for me for the next 12 years, 12, 13, 14 years. He sang for my students as well. And I was at 50, I thought, no, I have to keep going. This is a new experience. With Arun singing and my performing, it was an entirely different experience from before. So my last full-length, full Margam performance in Bharatanatyam was in 2012 with O.S. Arun singing. And although he came back for other performances, I decided that at 62, I had done enough of my solo performance. I would rather concentrate on teaching my students and choreographing new works for the dancers. So it's been in stages, and I would say that I wasn't looking for fame. I wasn't looking for money. So long as I'm comfortable and I'm able to actually have an environment surrounded by other artists, I was happy. So I could keep on creating works. I could help other people. I could give encouragement to the younger generation of dancers. People come to me, some people understand when you go and see Chandrabhanu, don't say you love to dance, because he will make you dance and he will not stop until you have achieved what he has achieved. And it's true. People come and say, oh, I want to dance. I love to dance. I want to dance. I say, okay, well, are you ready to work hard? Are you ready to face life itself? Because that's what you have to do. Your dance is your dance of life. It's your life. And while we may use the language of Bharatanatyam, of Odissi, of music and dance, In the end, is what you have to say as a personal being, what you have to communicate to the audience. So I think this is where a lot of people misunderstood the role of classical dance and classical arts. They thought it was you have to adhere to strictly to one form, and your personality should not come out. No, of course, there are extremes. There are dancers who have too much of what we call the aham, the ego. It's them, them, them. It's not about dance and about the subject matter anymore. It's all about them. And so this is what the danger is with the younger dancers today. And I know, for instance, today we have the challenge of social media as well. A lot of dance is going on in there, but short little skips, and you just look at it and you think, oh, where is that going? There seems to be no depth in so many of these short little, technically impressive, but it does nothing for me. I'm looking for what is the artist going to say about herself or himself. So these are, having been a professional dancer for 52 years, 53 years coming up, and having seen so many young people go through life with the dance and also go on with life itself, I feel very contented. I feel I've done what I have done, what I wanted to do. I would say that it was a karma that I did not bargain for. If you ask me when I was, let's say when I was 18 or 19, I would say that is an impossible scenario in terms of what my life has become. So the wisdom that you gain by recognizing that your journey in life with dance will touch other people. And I think that is the most important thing for me. The highest achievement that I have is that I have touched many people. I have allowed myself to encourage so many people to take up dance and to believe in the power of that spiritual aspect of dance.